Judge
Mr. Williams,
Judy.
according to your complaint, sir, you were hired by the defendant as a drummer in his band.
That's correct.
And the band was going on tour.
That's right.
Your complaint states that he breached your contract by firing you prior to the tour, that he owes you a substantial amount of money for that, and that in addition, he assaulted you. And as a result of that, you had substantial medical bills.
That's right, Your Honor. In March of '97, I was hired by Mr. Lydon. I went to his house. He had invited me over to hear his CD to listen to it. And after we had talked, he had hired me, and I began working on his music at my house about a month later after that.
It was May.
Mr. Lydon, listen to me, sir. I'm going to give you an opportunity to tell me your side of the story, all right?
Fine.
Right now, plaintiff is trying to present his case, and I'd like you to let him do that in an orderly fashion. Go
I
ahead.
was hired in March. I started working on the music in April after he'd given me a copy of his CD and brought it to my house and started working on it.
There's no question, sir, that you worked, and I believe that Mr. Lydon acknowledges that you worked. You were working
Certainly.
rehearsals, participated fully with the project. It's his defense to this action that, A, you were impossible to work with because you were a prima donna, that you violated several verbal agreements that you had with him, and that, in fact, he really didn't fire you, but you quit.
Well, that's not true at all,
Oh,
Your
yes,
Honor.
it is.
Shut up! Now,
Now,
Mr.
Your Honor,
Williams,
if I may.
so, Mr. Williams, because I have a lot of cases to do today, sir,
Right.
I'm going to move you along a little bit. So
Right.
let's get to this breach.
Okay.
When did the breach occur, according to you?
The day after the battery at the Japanese restaurant, we had a meeting.
And how much prior to your leaving on the tour was this meeting?
It was about 3 days before the tour.
And how long had you been in rehearsal?
Since July 11th. From July 11th, the battery occurred
Since from July 11th to when, sir?
until the 30th of July.
And you got paid for the rehearsal time?
I did.
Okay. Now, you had this meeting, and according to both of you, this meeting was because there had been some strain in the relationship that you were having with both Mr. Lydon and his manager.
If I may, Your Honor. There were several misunderstandings that were happening, promises that he had made from his management or from him himself that were breached. And that was why I asked him in this meeting, actually in a fax that I had sent to him, that I wanted to have our contract in writing. Because a guitar player who worked for him 10 years ago had done a U.S. tour for him and hadn't gotten paid for it when he had gotten back from the tour.
That's hearsay.
Proof,
Just a
please?
second.
I'd like proof of that.
Mr. Lydon,
Well, actually, when I had brought that up to
now
his younger...
listen to me.
Yes, ma'am.
You cannot bring in through the back door of a trial hearsay.
Oh, I'm
If
not
you
using
have-
this as evidence, Your Honor. I'm only using
Good.
this as a
Then if
reason.
you're not, listen to me, if you're not
Excuse me.
using it as evidence,
using it
Mr.
as a
Lydon, if you can't behave, sir, I'm going to show you the door. So
I
you
will
have
be
to be
very
quiet.
I promise, until it is my turn.
Good. Let me see a copy of your fax, sir, that you sent to him.
Here it is. Now, Your Honor...
Just a second.
Okay.
Okay. The one thing that's in this letter that you addressed to Deidron is that you want your own hotel room.
Right.
Now, this seems to be a bone of contention because, according to Mr. Lydon, it was never his intention or the intention of his organization that members of the band have their own hotel rooms.
Well,
There is a difference.
I had found out maybe a week before we were leaving for the tour that it was going to be 3 musicians sharing one hotel room with 2 beds, and that the band, the crew, was going to be using the shower, while Mr. Lydon would have his own suite, the tour manager would have his own room, and his bodyguard, John Lydon's bodyguard, would have his own room. Now, at this meeting at the Japanese restaurant, I mentioned this to Mr. Lydon. I said, you know, it's as if the musicians are fighting the war in the trenches for you while you're watching safely from the hill.
Were you the only musician, Mr. Williams, that was complaining about these arrangements?
Yes, I was.
Okay. So how many musicians were there in the band?
There were just 2 other musicians. Now, he had said to me...
Just a second.
3.
Okay.
He's excluding me.
Well, let's exclude you for a moment. Let's see how, because you weren't complaining about your accommodations, right?
I'm not.
Good.
Now, he said, if I give you your own hotel room, Robert, I'll have to give it to them. And I said, well, it would be the only humane thing to do, because after each of these shows, we were to get on the bus and travel for 7 or 8 hours, and the band was going to be in such tight quarters for 6 weeks to 8 weeks, you could go mad just not having your own space to be able to just get away from everything.